Welcome to Romance Story Audio. In the midst of this fast-paced world, thank you for taking a moment to slow down and listen. We hope this brings you peace and comfort. Now, here is the story Romance Story Audio brings to you today. Please enjoy. When Emily was a menace. Emily Grace was a real troublemaker when she was a kid, like seriously mischievous. One time, she secretly took a bedsheet that Ethan Powell had covered in detailed hand-drawn fantasy maps and tossed it onto Ryan Donovan's balcony. The timing couldn't have been worse. Ethan had a massive crush on Ryan back then. Emily's move was basically a direct stomp on the tender heart of a teenage boy in love. Ethan screamed with a voice still cracking from puberty and lunged at her. They got into a full-blown brawl. The chaos escalated so much that the neighborhood kids grabbed lawn chairs, lined them up like an audience, and munched on watermelon while watching the showdown. The ground was littered with rinds, but the two kept swinging. It wasn't until the oldest kid around, Michael Lamb, came home from tutoring and called in the adults that they were finally pulled apart. At the time, Ethan was about 15 or 16, tall and lanky like a beanpole, with nothing but a big head and sharp elbows. His mom dragged him back while he sobbed, snot and tears running down his face, gnashing his teeth at Emily. Why did I even? Meanwhile, Emily dusted herself off, gave him a defiant look, then turned on her heel and strutted away like she owned the street. And so the grudge was born. From then on, whenever they met, it was verbal warfare. If they didn't throw punches, it was already a sign of maturity. But as they got older, they both learned that constant fighting didn't exactly make them look good in public. Eventually, their conflict cooled into cold stares and sarcastic snorts. Ethan would throw out an icy humph, and Emily would smirk back without missing a beat. They kept a strict 3-foot distance at all times. Now, after Emily had spent 3 years in London and just returned, people seemed to have forgotten just how fierce she used to be. She pushed open the private room door. And wouldn't you know it, the only empty seat left was right next to Ethan Powell. It was Michael Lamb's birthday tonight, and Emily didn't want to ruin the mood, so she sat down beside Ethan with a frosty silence. "Well, well," Ethan said, putting down the karaoke mic with a mocking smile. "Isn't this our newly returned star, fresh off the plane from overseas?" Emily glanced at him coolly, without saying a word. Only then did everyone else remember. These two cannot sit next to each other. Michael stepped in awkwardly, trying to play the peacemaker with a sheepish grin. "My bad," he said. "I totally forgot these two don't exactly get along. Should have known better than to put the most hot-headed pair side by side." Ethan leaned back, arms crossed behind his head, smirking lazily. "Don't worry about it. When it comes to being hot-headed, I don't hold a candle to her." Then he turned and looked at Emily with that same challenging glare. Especially after a few drinks, his tone was laced with insinuation. "Star of the show," he muttered again under his breath. Before he could say more, Emily slapped her hand over his mouth. "Watch your words, Ethan," she said through clenched teeth. Ethan's eyes, normally crinkled with amusement, suddenly darkened. The atmosphere shifted, cold and electric. Ethan pushed Emily's hand away with a mocking tone. "Listen to yourself. Seriously, who should be careful here? You really don't know?" His voice dropped with bite. "Who was it back then?" Emily jumped to her feet, face flushed, breathing uneven. "Are you kidding me, Ethan? You're bringing up something that happened 3 years ago. What's the point?" "Something that happened, huh?" Ethan rolled those words slowly on his tongue, then gave a twisted smile. "How could it not mean something? The way you're panicking right now, out of breath, freaking out, it's entertaining as hell." Everyone in the room had known them since childhood, and from the look on Ethan's face, they could tell. He was genuinely pissed. But the longer they listened, the more it felt like something personal was going on between them. Their curiosity was piqued, and no one stepped in to stop them. Emily could feel the growing tension in the room. Without hesitation, she grabbed Ethan by the arm and yanked him up from the couch. "Outside, now!" He didn't resist, just let her drag him away lazily. Before they stepped out of the private room, he glanced back at their friends with a smirk. "Don't worry, next time I'm in the mood, I'll give y'all a front row seat to the drama." Emily ground her teeth at that, but said nothing. All she could do was glare at this annoyingly nonchalant man leaning against the wall. "Wasn't it just a drunk kiss I gave you, because I was too wasted and dumb to think straight? If you're still hung up on it, fine. Go ahead and hit me. Then let's call it even." The hallway was narrow and dim, lit only by flickering neon colors that danced across Ethan's sharp features, making him look almost unreal. "Even?" he scoffed, voice suddenly cold. "Emily, let me make this clear. That's not something we can just call even." In the dark, the sound of heavy breathing filled the air, blended with the faintest hint of something more dangerous. Skin brushed against cool air and shivered. Lips traced her neck, slid up her jaw, and finally paused at the corner of her mouth. A slow, almost reverent kiss followed, like tasting something rare. Then, a ringtone blared through the silence. Emily jerked back, snapping out of the hazy dream. It was Ryan Donovan calling. He'd gone on a weekend getaway at the hot spring resort west of the city. She sighed, cheeks still burning. "I'm only back for a month, Ryan. I've got too much to do." But Ryan didn't let up. "You're only here for a month and you're bailing on me? How many years are you planning to disappear after this?" Emily was speechless. When did Ryan get so sharp-tongued? But she couldn't really argue, not after being called out like that. So she stood up, reluctantly gathering her things to get ready for pickup. Even after all the years of tension, every group outing had always included both Emily and Ethan, like it or not. So when Ethan's car pulled up outside the building, she wasn't exactly surprised, but it still made her friends seem kind of reckless. "Where's Ryan?" she asked, standing beside the car, scanning the street one last time. "What's wrong? Don't want to get in?" Ethan puffed lazily on a cigarette, grinning sideways at her. "Lamb picked him up earlier. Lovebirds wanted their alone time. You gonna be the third wheel now?" She couldn't out-argue him anymore, and with how things stood, she knew she couldn't outfight him either. Emily shot him a deadly glare and moved to yank the back door open, but it wouldn't budge. Furious, she swung her small purse and smacked the car hard. "You should have just said you didn't want me in your damn car. What, you think I want to ride that badly?" Ethan poked his head out the window, a curl of smoke trailing behind him. "Go ahead, hit it again. I just bought this car 2 days ago. If you break it, I'll just have you pay me back, in flesh." Emily shot Ethan a glare, but didn't even have the energy to argue anymore. Clutching her purse, heels clicking hard against the pavement, she stormed off ahead. "What, you think you're the only one who can drive? I could walk out to the main road, flag down a dozen rides with better manners than yours, and at least they'd make small talk," she muttered, voice low but loud enough for Ethan to hear. The smirk vanished from his face. His expression darkened, and he suddenly floored it, roaring past her down the street. "What the hell is wrong with this guy?" Emily gritted her teeth. "I thought dealing with difficult clients for years had toughened me up, but 1 second with Ethan Carter, and I'm back to losing it. Hoping he would be gentle with me? Might as well hope I wake up tomorrow a billionaire." By the time she arrived at the resort, it was already late afternoon. The driver had taken a wrong turn, making the trip longer. Ryan Donovan had just gotten out of the hot spring, skin still glowing pink from the heat. He raised an eyebrow at her. "You got into it with Ethan again, didn't you? I saw him arrive alone earlier. Looked like a walking thundercloud." Emily was in the locker room, slipping into her swimsuit. "When do I not argue with that guy? Of all the people you could have sent to pick me up, you had to send him? You're just trying to ruin my day." Ryan raised her hands innocently. "I didn't invite him. He volunteered to pick you up." "He did?" Emily scoffed. "You really think I buy that?" Ignoring Ryan's attempts to explain, she marched off toward the hot spring on her own. By the time she'd finished soaking and was asking where to store her things, night had already fallen. Her room was pitch black. She reached out to flick on the light and nearly jumped out of her skin when she saw someone sitting cross-legged on the tatami mat by the window. "Jesus, Ethan, are you insane?" she gasped, clutching her chest. Normally, he'd toss back a sarcastic jab, but now he just spun a silver Zippo lighter in his hand, staring at her with unreadable eyes, saying nothing. His silence unnerved her. Emily refused to back down. She lifted her chin, voice sharp. "Got something to say? Spit it out. If not, get out." Ethan's hand stilled. He flipped the lighter open with a soft click, the blue flame flaring in the dark. "Let's settle this," he said, lips curling into a smile that looked almost wicked in the flickering light. Emily turned her face away. "There's nothing to settle." "Oh, really?" he said coolly. "Let me refresh your memory. 3 years ago, who was the drunk idiot that climbed into my bed?" She froze. "And who broke my grandfather's favorite porcelain vase and left me to take the blame? Got my ass beat for it." Every accusation hit home. She had done all of it. Her bravado shrank fast. Okay. So what do you want? How do you want to settle it?" Ethan snapped his fingers. "Simple. Help me win over Ryan." Emily stared at him like he'd grown 2 heads. "She's with Michael now." "Exactly," he said. "That's why I need you to break them up." He paused, then added with a smirk. "And you've had a thing for Michael for years, haven't you?" Emily's breath hitched. Her chest tightened, a slow ache spreading. "Ethan, what the hell happened to you in 3 years? You used to be an asshole, but now you're just cruel." His eyes dimmed for a second. Then he replied, voice like ice. "Still better than someone who moaned another man's name in my bed." That one landed like a punch. The room fell silent. Finally, Ethan turned away, his voice quieter. "Anyway, just think about it." It didn't take long for Emily to realize what he meant by "think about it." She had returned to the US for work. Her company was expanding into the California market, and she'd been assigned to manage key partnerships. Who would have thought her first major contact would be Ethan Carter? "Mr. Carter," she said, forcing a smile as they sat across from each other in a conference room. "I was under the impression your uncle still ran Carter Group." Ethan, lazily stirring his coffee with a small spoon, leaned back in his chair. "Guess you remembered wrong. The board handed me control last year." "No one told me that." He looked up finally, his smile slight, eyes sharp. "Guess no one tells you a lot of things." Some truths are better left unknown, and Emily Grace had mastered the art of not knowing. Still, she choked on her words, stiffly changing the subject. "It's fine. I can work with anyone. I've prepared a proposal. I was wondering if CEO Carter has time to—" "No," Ethan cut her off flatly. Emily had to fight the urge to throw her briefcase straight at his face. Swallowing her temper, she said evenly, "Mr. Carter, this is a business collaboration. There's no need to drag personal grudges into it." Ethan didn't flinch. "I think it's exactly the place for them. You want to talk business?" "Sure. Right after you agree to what I asked earlier." His words faded into the silence. Emily's patience snapped. She stood up and kicked him in the shin, then slammed his office door behind her with dramatic flair. At first, the kick felt empowering, but that satisfaction didn't last. When Emily tried reaching out to other companies, hoping to bypass Carter Group, she was stonewalled at every turn. Every director declined. Politely, uniformly. Finally, the kind-hearted CEO of Sterling Holdings pulled her aside. "Someone sent word around. No one is to work with you." Emily instantly knew who it was. "That bastard Ethan Carter," she muttered, clenching her teeth. "Seriously, what are you guys afraid of? He's not God." But the CEO gave her a knowing smile. "We don't have to take the deal, but when he makes a rare request, none of us want to get in the way." Fuming, Emily stormed back to Carter Group. Ethan had probably changed clothes by now. The heel mark she left on his pants earlier was gone. but his face looked even worse than hers. "Well, didn't you leave all high and mighty? What brings you crawling back?" he sneered. Emily didn't bother pretending anymore. "We're both adults. Just tell me what it'll take for you to sign the damn contract." Ethan was unmoved. "I told you already. Break up Ryan and Michael." Emily's jaw clenched. "Not a chance." "Then there's the door." Before she could even finish another sentence, Ethan cut her off again. Emily bit her lip, frustrated beyond belief. "Ethan Carter, you just wait." And she meant it. When Emily Grace set her mind to something, nothing could stop her. Thus began her daily campaign of persistence. He went to the office. She followed. He met with clients. She was there. He drove home. She trailed right behind. Wherever Ethan was, Emily was in the background, like a stubborn shadow. Their mutual friends were stunned. The two of them had suddenly become inseparable. Even Ryan noticed. She pulled Emily aside one afternoon. "What's going on with you and Ethan? You two are everywhere together." Emily could only stare at her best friend's concerned expression, fighting the urge to break down and sob. "What's going on? What else?" "Ethan Carter's had a thing for you since we were kids," she wanted to scream. "Now he's mad that I turned him down, so he's taking it out on me." But of course, she couldn't say any of that. No matter how much she wanted to scream the truth, she kept it locked up. There's a saying, never mess with your best friend's man. And now, Ethan wasn't messing. He was serious. If the truth came out, how could they ever be friends again? No matter how rocky things had been between her and Ethan, there were still years of shared history between them. "I really am becoming too soft," she muttered, leaning against the wall, scanning the crowd for Ethan beneath the party lights. The familiar voice of an old song started playing. "When you laugh with your eyes, when you drink cola, when you argue," the soundtrack of 100 chaotic memories. Their friend group always needed an excuse to gather. This time, someone's dog had just had puppies. Naturally, they all piled into their cars and headed out to the local farm to celebrate. Noticing how close Emily and Ethan had become, the gang conspired to put them in the same car again. A few months ago, she would have refused, but today, she was fine with it. Ethan looked visibly annoyed as he drove. Emily sat in the passenger seat, calmly flipping through the proposal, reading every word, every detail. Finally, she said sincerely, "Ethan Carter, I mean it. This plan is really good." "You're not even going to consider it?" Emily snapped. Ethan Carter rested one hand on the wheel, eyes still on the road, expression bored. "Nope." "Oh, really?" she shot back, pulling out another copy of the proposal. "This one's from my colleague. Let me read it to you." Before he could object, she was already reading aloud. A vein twitched visibly at Ethan's temple. The car jerked to a hard stop with a loud screech. "Get out!" Emily clutched the door. "No!" Their eyes locked. Sparks flew. They were in the last car of the convoy. The others hadn't noticed they'd fallen behind. They just kept driving. No one was around to play peacekeeper this time, but sitting in the middle of the road wasn't exactly practical either. Emily glanced at Ethan, then reached for the steering wheel. "Fine. If you won't drive, move. I'll do it." "Like hell!" Ethan growled, blocking her hand. The next moment was chaos. In the scuffle, someone, neither of them would ever admit who, hit the gas pedal. The car swerved violently and barreled off the road, crashing through the brush and tumbling down into the trees below. Luckily, the hill was only about 10 feet high. Neither of them was seriously hurt. When Ethan pulled Emily out of the smoking car, she was dazed and leaning into him. Her arms were weak, legs shaky, and bruises marked her arms and legs. "You good?" he asked, voice low, hand trembling slightly as it held her. Yeah," she murmured, still lightheaded. "Is my brain scrambled?" she wondered, staring up at his jawline. "Since when does Ethan Carter sound concerned?" "Don't tell me," she said, blinking. "You got possessed or something?" Ethan tensed, leaned down, and stared her straight in the eyes. "If you say one more word, I swear I'll snap." And yet, he didn't let her go. Instead, one arm kept her close as he reached for his phone. "No signal," he muttered. Earlier, someone in the group had joked they wanted a wilderness adventure, so they'd picked the most remote campsite they could find. Now, not only was there no signal, there wasn't a soul around. To make matters worse, when the car flipped, their camping gear flew everywhere. One of the tents got shredded by a tree branch. Only one was left intact. Ethan started assembling it. Emily, quick as ever, dove into the tent as soon as it was up. "First come, first served. Guess you're sleeping outside tonight." Ethan didn't argue. He rummaged through the wreckage and found a few unbroken bottles of wine and some snacks. Then he walked back, pushed into the tent, and sat down beside her. "Chill," he said. "3 years ago, you were all over me. What's the big deal now?" "Ethan Carter, have you no shame?" she hissed. "Didn't we agree never to talk about that again?" He scoffed. "I don't remember agreeing to anything." He handed her a bottle. "Drink, or you'll freeze tonight." The moonlight filtered through the trees, cold and pure. A few sips in, Emily was already lightheaded. Her vision blurred a little as she looked at Ethan sitting beside her, the sharp cut of his cheekbones, the way his eyes glowed like starlight through cherry blossoms. She thought back to when she first realized he liked Ryan Donovan, and how she had immediately tried to sabotage it. This man, with his infuriating charm and dangerous eyes, would eat someone like Ryan alive. Back then, she was just a girl with her head full of romance novels, thinking nice, safe guys like Michael Lang were husband material. But now, watching Ethan gather up broken gear and fix things calmly, he wasn't so bad. He was even kind of endearing. She remembered the night everything spiraled out of control. When she found out Ryan and Michael were together, she'd downed 2 bottles of cheap rice wine. Tipsy and brokenhearted, she'd stumbled into Ethan's room, kissed him, and let the rest happen. And she'd known full well it was Ethan. She always had. Snapping back to the present, Emily squinted at him through the soft glow of the tent. She slowly reached out and brushed her fingers against the lines of his face. Gently, carefully. Ethan froze. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Emily, say it. Who am I?" She blinked slowly, a teasing smirk forming. "You're Ethan Carter. Who else?" It was just like 3 years ago, when she'd whispered his name with wine on her breath, and then vanished the next morning like it never happened. Only this time, when she clambered up the roadside at dawn, the first people she ran into were Michael and Ryan. Yesterday, when everyone finally realized Emily Grace and Ethan Carter hadn't made it down from the mountain, it was already too late. At first, they'd all assumed the usual. Another argument. So no one paid attention. But when midnight came and neither of them had shown up, and their phones went straight to voicemail, people started to worry. At dawn, the group sent a search team down the trail. When they found out that Emily and Ethan had crashed their car off the road, no one said much. Michael Lang didn't say a word. He just looked at Emily, long and hard, with that same unreadable expression of his. It made her uncomfortable. The moment he went off to check on Ethan, she grabbed Ryan Donovan and whispered, "Let's go. Take Michael's car." They slipped away. On the highway, Ryan glanced over at her, face serious. "Emily, is there something going on between you and Ethan?" She nearly slammed the brakes. "What? Number Ryan, don't start imagining things." Ryan leaned back in her seat, clearly unconvinced. She looked like she wanted to say more, but seeing Emily's furrowed brow, she held back. "If you're gonna deny it, at least hide the blush behind your ears first," Ryan thought to herself. By the time they returned to the city, it was almost noon. Emily didn't even wait for Ryan to speak. It was like she was being chased by something. She booked the earliest flight back to London. Later that evening, when Michael and Ethan returned, Ryan filled them in and snuck glances at Ethan's face. He was calm. Too calm. "You're not mad?" Ryan asked. I mean, come on, you've got to be pissed. Ethan gave a low chuckle. Every damn time. Of course I'm mad. Ryan blinked. Wait, every time? I thought you two only recently. Michael patted her head with a smile. Shh. Let them work it out themselves. Don't get involved. Ethan said nothing. His lips curved into a cold smile. Let's see how far she thinks she can run. Ryan shivered. She silently lit a candle for Emily in her heart. And sure enough, Emily was back in the States within days. Work wasn't done. The deal hadn't closed. She had to return. A business contract, or as she called it now, her soul-selling agreement. But what she hadn't expected was that, this time, the entire social circle seemed to know what happened between her and Ethan. Intimately. Rumors. So many of them. And not just once. Everyone seemed to think she and Ethan had been sleeping together more than once. The calls wouldn't stop. Finally, Emily had enough. She marched straight to the Carter house. It was a 3-story mansion, but Ethan lived on the first floor. The yard was small, surrounded by a low white fence. She'd once climbed over that very fence as a teen to sneak into his room. Back then, the Carter family barely wanted anything to do with Carter Group. Every time someone in the family came of age, they handed off the company and disappeared. That's how Ethan had ended up with it. She hadn't planned how she'd face him, but when anger boiled over, she didn't care anymore. She kicked open the door and stood there with her hands on her hips. Ethan Carter, are you the one spreading rumors out there? He didn't even flinch. Sitting inside, calm as ever, he looked up at her. A faint red mark lingered on his neck. He smiled, innocently even. Rumors? Those are things with no basis, in fact, he said lightly. Tell me, Emily, is anything they're saying actually false? Emily opened her mouth and couldn't respond. He went on. Run back to London again. That's what you're good at, right? Every word hit like a slap. Emily flushed. If it weren't for the unfinished contract, do you really think I'd come back here? Of course not, he said flatly. You've always been a coward. Anything happens and you run. Ethan's hand tightened into a fist under the table, but his voice stayed cold. The last time, nothing happened, and you still disappeared for 3 years. This time, everything happened. How long are you gonna run now? Emily clenched her teeth. Her chest ached with something bitter. She growled, Ethan Carter, you can't just treat people like this. One moment you're chasing Ryan, the next you're teasing me. What, trying to have it both ways? That struck a nerve. Ethan took a sharp breath, his restraint cracking. With a sudden smash, he slammed a glass against the table, shards flying. Emily Grace, he roared. Are you stupid? Since when did I ever say I liked Ryan? You made that up. You believed your own damn assumptions. She shrank back slightly, startled, but still defiant. You didn't deny it either. All you said was you wanted me to help split her and Michael up. That was to test you, Ethan shouted, to see if you still had feelings for Michael. Emily fired back instinctively. Even if I did, what does that have to do with you? Ethan Carter looked at her with a cold smirk. Tell me something, Emily. Before he realized he had feelings for her, Ethan had struggled. A lot. He'd always seen her as a buddy, one of the guys. So when the first stirrings hit him, he backed away hard, kept his distance, came home from college and found excuses to avoid her. Even when the friend group hung out, he stopped joking around with her like before. Once, she'd brought him a weird little toy she found amusing. He actually thought it was cool, but told her flatly, not interested. Back then, Emily had a buzz cut, bright, mischievous eyes, and the attitude of a rebellious boy. Meanwhile, Ethan had always imagined he'd marry someone soft-spoken, gentle, sweet, the complete opposite of her. But the more he tried to escape, the more his eyes sought her out. She was always hanging around Ryan Donovan, so he forced himself to look at Ryan instead. No use. One summer night, He woke from a dream about those bright, shining eyes, only to find his sheets soaked with sweat. And not just sweat. That's when he knew. He was in deep. What he hadn't expected was that the very next day, that idiot girl stole the very bedsheet he had the dream in and hung it out on Ryan's balcony. His deepest secret, his most vulnerable moment, exposed like some prank. He was livid, nearly passed out from rage, stormed off to find her and beat her senseless. That night, she punched him square in the face. And Ethan, holding his bruised cheek, cried and cursed himself. How the hell did I fall for someone like her? He swore to the sky that if he ever liked her again, may lightning strike him 5 times. But after wiping away the tears, she still showed up in his dreams. After that, Ethan changed. Quiet, broody, always picking fights with her, always looking for ways to push her away, fighting the feelings that only grew stronger by the day. People thought they were incompatible. But God, all Ethan really wanted was to pull her into his arms and kiss her senseless, until she listened to him for once. But he never got that chance. He tried to keep his feelings buried, watched her from afar, and that's when he noticed it. One day, Emily looked at Michael Lang with that look, the exact look Ethan had been giving her for years. Panic hit. He'd always believed no one but him could be foolish enough to fall for a tomboy like Emily Grace. But he forgot. She could fall for someone else too. So when Michael confessed to Ryan, Ethan deliberately pissed Emily off, teased her, provoked her into chasing him, dragged her to the exact spot where Michael proposed to Ryan. He wanted her to see it, to crush the idea before it took root. It was a flawless plan. He would comfort her, step in, rekindle their connection, and slowly win her over. But she didn't cry. She didn't even react. No tears, no expression. Just walked away. Ethan was shaken. Had he been wrong all along? Maybe she never liked Michael. That night, he lay awake, tossing in bed, tormented. And then came the shock. The absolute shock. She was drunk, clumsy, but she wrapped her arms around him, kissed him, touched him, whispered soft things. And he thought, finally, she liked him, she chose him, until she moaned Michael Lang's name. Ethan nearly lost it. He held back, barely. Spent the whole night nursing her, taking care of her. And what did she do? Vanished the next morning. No goodbye, just disappeared. Transferred schools, got a visa, flew to London, and stayed gone for 3 years. And now, after all that, she had the nerve to run again? Ethan snapped. He stormed up behind her and punched the door beside her so hard the wall trembled. His face was dark, his voice low and dangerous. You like Michael? Fine, I won't stop you. But don't forget, you're the one who started this. He grabbed her chin, holding her still. Didn't you always mock me? Every time we went to karaoke, you said I only ever sang one damn song. He leaned in, his breath warm, his voice almost a whisper. Well then, remind me, Emily, what are the last lines of that song? Her heart raced. Her head spun. But even in that dizzy haze, the lyrics echoed in her mind. I want to tell you, but I'm scared I'll mess it all up. I like you so much. Do you even know that? On the day of Michael Lang and Ryan Donovan's engagement party, Ethan Carter looked absolutely miserable. Anyone who didn't know him wouldn't dare approach. He was, after all, the heir to Carter Group, and the look on his face said, stay away. But their close-knit group of friends? They weren't so easily intimidated. Someone nudged his shoulder, motioning toward the ballroom with a sly grin. She didn't come with you? You still haven't won her over? The wild one's already settled down, and you're still stuck in the friend zone? Ethan's expression darkened further. He didn't reply. His eyes, though, were fixed on a figure standing not far from Ryan. Emily Grace. She looked stunning tonight, dressed in a backless white gown that clung perfectly to her curves. Her long black hair flowed like silk down her back, elegance radiating from every inch of her. She looked like the very vision of the wife Ethan had dreamed of as a child. and all Ethan wanted in that moment was to grab a blanket and wrap her up. Men kept glancing back at her. It made his blood boil. Michael was chatting with guests nearby. He noticed Ethan's thunderous expression and smiled without saying a word. Thankfully, the guys weren't completely heartless. They circled around Ethan to brainstorm. "This won't work, man. She's a handful, always has been. No one could beat her in a fight when we were kids. Just drop your pride and lure her in. Make her yours, then talk." "Drop my pride?" Ethan sneered. "You think I haven't tried? The last time I confessed to her, back at my house, she looked like she saw a ghost, shoved me away, and bolted. Ever since then, she's been avoiding me. Always the first to leave, barely shows up." He glanced across the room. "Michael and Ryan are about to get married. Is she still hung up on him?" That thought sent a fresh wave of bitterness through him. His gaze landed on Michael again. Michael calmly sipped his drink and raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong?" Ethan's tone was sharp. "When we were kids, did you ever do something that made Emily misunderstand?" Michael paused. "Like when you teased her and made her cry, and I was the one who comforted her?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Or when you stuck that note on her back, and I took it off before she noticed?" Ethan said nothing, his face steadily turning pale. Michael grinned. "Or when you picked a fight, and I stood up for her?" Ethan's breath caught in his chest, stuck between a sigh and a scream. He couldn't get it out. Michael watched with amusement. After a long moment, he chuckled. "You two really are something else. One thinks you liked Ryan, the other thinks she liked me. You've spent years at each other's throats, when all along, you were just completely clueless." People nearby were confused. "Wait, you're saying both Emily and Ethan liked someone else this whole time? I thought they were just always fighting because they were in love." Outside observers were baffled. The people in the story were blind. And over time, even those watching from afar began to doubt what true feelings even looked like. As Ethan walked toward Emily, Michael swirled the wine in his glass, took a sip, and sighed. "Honestly, it's worrying." "What's there to worry about?" someone teased. Michael lowered his gaze, eyes flashing with something unreadable. "You think Emily was sent back to the States just to survey the market? Why did no other companies agree to collaborate with her? And how did that premium tent in the car get torn so conveniently?" He glanced toward Ethan. "This engagement party, it's your launching pad, don't screw it up." And just like that, almost as if rehearsed, Ethan stepped up onto the stage. The spotlight above him flicked on. The rest of the lights dimmed. He stood still for a moment, then adjusted the mic. One hand held the microphone. The other lifted and pointed toward Emily. "You, come up here." Emily instinctively tried to hide behind Ryan, but Ryan was already swept away by Michael. The crowd, sensing a show, quickly backed off, leaving her standing alone under the spotlight. Nowhere to run. Ethan rarely showed kindness, but tonight, his face softened just a little. The brooding shadow was gone. "You want to stand there and listen? Fine, then listen closely. From the very beginning, since we were kids, the only person I've ever liked is you, no one else. As for why you thought I liked Ryan, well, maybe it's because you were always beside her. Every time I got caught staring at you, I panicked and looked at her instead. I don't care if you ever liked Michael." He took a breath. "I just want to know one thing now." His eyes never left hers. "Do you like me?" Emily looked down, biting her lip. Her eyes shimmered. A tear welled at the corner. Cheers erupted all around the ballroom. Ethan Carter stepped off the stage, calm and unwavering, despite the roaring crowd. He walked straight toward her. Across the room, Ryan Donovan leaned softly into Michael Lang's embrace. Watching Ethan reach out and pull Emily Grace into his arms, she tilted her head curiously. "You knew it all along," she whispered. "Why didn't you just call them out earlier?" Michael bent to kiss her forehead and smiled gently. "Even we fought sometimes. Why wouldn't they?" Feelings when you're young don't always survive the test of time. Better to let them sit quietly. Wait for both people to grow, then build something real. He paused, watching the couple. Besides, they were so wound up back then, it probably terrified them. It's hard to admit you like someone you always saw as a friend or sibling. If they'd confessed earlier, what would it have changed? He chuckled. Young people are best at one thing, running from their own hearts. Much later, on a summer day, long after Emily had wrapped up the domestic market expansion project, she invited Michael and Ryan on a 7-day trip to Europe as a little celebratory getaway. Ethan tagged along. Officially, it was a work check-in. Unofficially, he was jealous. Again. He couldn't help bringing up old grudges, like how she once liked Michael, and how he had never liked Ryan. It annoyed him all over again. Emily, meanwhile, was busy surfing at the beach. She'd missed his call the night before and forgot to call back. So the next morning, Ethan flew out to find her. When Emily saw him looking sleep-deprived and grumpy, her irritation at being woken up melted into a sigh. "Don't you have a company to run? Why are you here?" Ethan glared at her like he was ready to explode, but instead, he pulled her into his arms, resting his head against the crook of her neck. His voice was hoarse, low. "If you ignore my call again, I swear I'll lose it." They had always been fiery, never backing down. But once they became a couple, they slowly learned to soften for each other. Emily brushed his hair back from his forehead, smiling gently. Her eyes sparkled, warm and sweet. "To make it up to you, I'll tell you a secret," she said. "What secret?" he mumbled into her skin. "Well, back then, I did have a crush on Michael." Ethan tensed slightly. She giggled. "But only because he looked like the main character in one of my romance novels. That's why I stole your bedsheet, too. I wanted to embarrass you, so Ryan wouldn't like you." She tilted her head and kissed his hand lightly. "And that night I came to you drunk and accidentally said Michael's name. I was scared. I just didn't know how to stop you. I panicked." Her voice lowered to a whisper. "The truth is, the only person I've ever liked is you." There was a beat of silence, then a deep chuckle behind her ear. A long pause, and Ethan finally whispered back with a grin. "Then let me tell you a secret, too." "The bedsheet from that night?" He leaned in, his voice barely audible, almost sinful in how softly he spoke it. "I didn't wet the bed. That was my proof I loved you." Thank you for listening to Romance Story Audio. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next episode.